This video is about conclusions. In this video, we take a closer look at putting together strong conclusions. We go over what makes a strong conclusion and what to avoid. A conclusion is your last chance to persuade your reader to your point of view, to convince your reader of the merits of your argument. Your conclusion should give your reader a sense of conclusion. You don't want to trail off, leaving your reader hanging, wondering why they read your document. In your conclusion, you want to emphasize the validity of your argument and the logic of your thinking. Think about the questions, so what, who cares? When a reader gets to the end of your document, you don't want to leave them thinking, so what? Answer the question for them in your conclusion. You also want to answer the question, who cares? If your reader is left wondering why you spent so much time researching and writing your document, you have not been persuasive. Answering these two questions in your conclusion will reinforce all the persuasive work you've done throughout the essay. Remember that you don't want to be too subtle or assume that your reader will know what you think. You want to make sure that your reader clearly understands exactly what you are trying to say. And don't forget, your conclusion is your last chance to tie things together. There are a number of possible ways to conclude an essay, as seen in the following examples from Jean Wyrick's Steps to Writing Well. In this example, the writer is concluding with an evaluation of why the subject, the photos of the comet, is important. These amazing controversial photographs of the comet will continue to be a subject of debate because, according to some scientists, they yield the most important clues yet revealed about the origins of our universe. In this example, the author is drawing attention to the broader implication of the essay's findings, that studying feline leukemia is important for humans, not just cats. In this example, the author is drawing attention to the connections between historical and contemporary events. Few people in the pre-Nazi era would have predicted the rise of Hitler or the actions of the Nazis. So the author is arguing that we need to pay closer attention to current politics to make sure that a similar situation does not arise again. Whatever type of conclusion you decide to use, always make sure that it is appropriate to the situation and purpose. In long essays, it's useful to restate the thesis and the main points of the essay. Now, you don't want to just copy it in the same words. Rather, put it all in new words and then make sure to answer that so what and who cares questions. Another strategy is to use a call to action. This type of conclusion will be more useful in opinion-oriented essays or articles rather than academic style. Sometimes you can conclude with a quotation from someone who is an expert or whose insights emphasize the main point, but you should use this cautiously. Only use a quotation when it is really perfect. Most often, it's better not to have quotations in the conclusion. You could also use an anecdote, so for example, a short story, to sum up the point of the essay. Similarly, you could use a description that creates an image in the reader's mind that provides a sense of finality to the essay. You could also use a rhetorical question to make the reader think about the essay's main point. If you use this strategy, make sure that you don't use a trite question. It should be something that makes the reader see your point in a different way or forces them to think in new ways. Finally, you could use a prediction based on the essay's thesis. If this goes on, what can we expect to see? As with writing any part of your document, always make sure that the strategy you use is suitable for the purpose and the audience. Some strategies are more informal than others, so choose wisely. There are a few tips to help avoid writing weak conclusions. The first is to avoid mechanical endings. That is, avoid restating your thesis in the exact same words you used in your introduction. You can remind your reader of your thesis and main points, especially in a long essay, but do so in new words and phrases. In a conclusion, you never introduce new ideas. The point of a conclusion is to tie things together and persuade your reader about your argument. If you add a new idea in a conclusion, you don't have the opportunity to develop that idea. If it is important to your argument, then it should be included in the main body of your essay. It is, however, acceptable to point to new research that can be done in the future, especially if your research raised some new questions. You also don't want to tack on a conclusion. In other words, you want to try to ensure that your conclusion flows logically from your last body paragraph, rather than seeming to come out of the blue. Related to this point, it is important to make sure you do not change your stance. Don't soften or back down from your argument, and don't offer apologies. Don't say you ran out of time for doing more research or anything like that. Finally, avoid trite or overused expressions such as in conclusion or in summary. If you use a phrase like this in your first draft, try to change it up when you do your revisions. Similarly, never say, "As you can see, this essay proves my thesis that," blah, 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 blah. While you may get away with such phrases in high school, by university, the expectation is that you can write stronger conclusions without using such simplistic phrases. Conclusions are just as important as introductions. Where your introduction draws your reader in with an interesting research question or thesis, the conclusion persuades the reader that you know what you're talking about and that your argument is strong and correct. Your conclusion solidifies your argument. In this video, we have considered the importance of a strong conclusion and how to write a strong paragraph. We also looked at some tips for avoiding weak paragraphs. Thank you for listening.